Good morning, everybody. It's 7 o'clock in the United Kingdom. 2 days left to get a deal at COP26. And the biggest polluter on the planet is talking green. The Chinese president acknowledges the damage that climate change will do to his country. New claims of the millions made by the Conservative MP Sir Geoffrey Cox in his additional legal work. We'll speak to the Small Business Minister Paul Scully about that, and an apology from the Duchess of Sussex, who says she forgot her assistant was cooperating with the authors of a biography about her life. We'll meet the incredible bionic mum. She's going back to work as a primary school teacher after losing her arms and legs through a viral infection. And hitting the pause button, we'll introduce you to Dog TV, which aims to de-stress your four-legged buddy. It's Armistice Day, Thursday, the 11th of November. We will eventually harm ourselves. The Chinese president says further action needs to be taken on climate change as the COP26 summit in Glasgow reaches its final stages.
There are just 2 days left here in Scotland for ministers and diplomats to reach a deal if they stand a chance of saving the world from a climate catastrophe.
Just hours after the Prime Minister defends his handling of the sleaze scandal, new allegations about the lucrative second jobs held by Conservative MP Sir Geoffrey Cox.
New rules mean by today all care home staff in England have to be double vaccinated, but that deadline means many could lose their jobs.
Meghan's apology. The Duchess of Sussex says she forgot her aide was cooperating with the authors of a book about her life inside the royal family. Border chaos. Poland accuses Belarus of state terrorism as thousands of refugees try to cross the border between the two countries. Good morning, everybody. Hopes for a deal on emissions at the COP26 summit will be high this morning after the Chinese president publicly admitted the damage climate change will do to his country. In a speech to a regional summit, Xi Jinping said the harms done to nature will eventually harm ourselves. There are just 2 days left for negotiators to reach an agreement in Glasgow. Let's find out more about it. Shudri Ashna has been there for us throughout, joins us now. This is a breakthrough, isn't it, Ashna? Good morning.
Good morning, Kay. It is a significant moment. The fact that the countries, the world's two biggest polluters, have come together in this way, the United States and China. We've heard at this press conference yesterday the climate envoy for the US, John Kerry, speaking that he had been having meetings with China from all the way back in April. And this is what COP is about laying the groundwork, numerous meetings and leading up to this quite significant moment that they have agreed on this framework for climate solutions. They say they want to decarbonise the world, and they say they want to invest in new technology and come up with these climate solutions. But speaking at a summit, an economic summit, the Chinese President Xi Jinping, this was pre the announcement, announced that he was, in fact, taking climate seriously. Here's what he had to say.
It had come to me that harms done to nature will eventually harm ourselves. China will actively promote ecological conservation. To us, lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. We will intensify comprehensive efforts to stem soil erosion and win the critical battle of pollution prevention and control. China will fully implement its national strategy on climate change response. Since I announced the goals of carbon peak and carbon neutrality last year, China has formulated an action plan for carbon dioxide peaking before 2030.
Look at that sort of language from the Chinese president. This is not something that he is used to talking about. We're not used to hearing China talking in this way about the threat that climate poses to the entire world. What we've also seen overnight, Kay, are a new batch of documents that have come through, full of legalese, as you can imagine. We've also had that first draft of the agreement that they hope they will be released in the next 24 to 48 hours. Lots of those documents involving a conversation around finance, but also transparency too. As I unpick that, I hope to bring you more details in the next hour. But it is going to be complicated, and pressure is absolutely ramping up today.
Yep, nobody better than you to unpack it for us, though. Ashley, we'll see you in the next hour. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Latest GDP figures have just been released. Let's find out more about it. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, is here. I know you're on your way to interview the Chancellor, so I've got to make it quick.
No, well, I mean, the numbers have just come out, and he will be seeing them for the same time at the same time as us. 0.6% growth in September. Remember, with these GDP numbers, actually in the past we've tended to look at quarterly numbers, but now we get them on the month, so we get more of a kind of up-to-date sense on how the economy is doing. 0.6%, that's actually a bit better than expected, but here's the thing, they've revised the previous month down, and the big picture here is that we're still below. So the size of the economy, and what we're talking about is GDP, it's just how much income we're generating across the economy. It gets divided between all of us. That total size of that income pot is still 0.6 percentage points below where we were before the pandemic struck. Okay. So we're still kind of trying to regain that level. And some people had hoped maybe this was the moment we might get back there. It was touch and go, but that hasn't happened. We're still trying to kind of regain that lost ground. So that's certainly one of the things I'll talk to the Chancellor about. Obviously, the fact that people are feeling more and more squeezed at the moment. I mean, prices are really mounting, and obviously it's energy prices, but it's also stuff we're seeing in the shops as well. So there's a lot of big issues in the economy right now, alongside what you're discussing there with Ashna about COP and what's going on. So
yeah, and we're just hearing, actually, as you were saying about a COP, just a quick thought on that before you go. I know you've got to rush. How important is it to this government that they have a successful outcome in COP?
I mean, it matters enormously. It matters enormously because, it's rare that actually, the UK gets to hold these kinds of events, and this is, a big moment for the UK from that perspective. It is a critical point, I think, because, last time around it was very much about setting out targets. This time it's actually showing that you can do something. It's doing something, and turning those words into actions has always been the key kind of question mark over this COP. And so far, do we think they've got there? I mean, we've got more words from China and the US, which is encouraging. But again, it's not about words, it's about deeds. And this is supposed to be the moment where those deeds are actually supposed to become concrete. We haven't necessarily got a sign of that yet, but we'll see. I mean, all these summits, you've covered plenty of them as have I. I mean, it's always very much the last minute. Can something be kind of grasped from the jaws of defeat?
We'll see your interview with the Chancellor shortly. For now, Ed, thanks so much indeed. Joining us now is the Minister for Small Business. That's Paul Scully. Hello to Mr Scully. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning.
Morning.
Talking about the Prime Minister there being on the world stage at COP. How embarrassing is it for him to be standing on the world stage at COP and having to say that the UK is not a corrupt country?
Well, what you've seen over COP is the UK and the PM taking great leadership in what is really, really important for the planet, not just the country. But clearly, in terms of what's happening in Parliament, we're working through. We want to get a cross-party consensus to make sure that we can root out the bad practices of MPs and making sure that we're concentrating on our constituencies, concentrating on the country, and concentrating on those policies that are really important for people at home.
Yeah, and in answer to my question, how embarrassing is it?
Well, as I say, the Prime Minister's answering direct questions that are given to him by journalists. But what he's also doing is, as I say, focusing on what's really important to people at home, and that's making sure that we can get MPs concentrated on that. But in COP in Glasgow, making sure we can get the international community, as you've just heard, including China and America now, really focused on making sure that we can keep to that 1.5 degrees centigrade increase.
OK. What motivates you to be an MP?
Change. I wanted to be a local MP in my local area in Sutton to get a new hospital built, and that's well on its way now, with £500 million to going and building a new hospital, but also making sure that we can get opportunity for people. I've been self-employed for 30 years, created my own businesses, created jobs myself, and I want to make sure that we can really embed that in UK culture to allow it to grow, to allow it to develop, and make sure that we've got opportunities for everybody around the country.
OK, so that's what motivates you. One senior Conservative MP has made £5.5 million in other work while he's been an MP in the House of Commons. Why would you want to be an MP if you can make that sort of money on the side?
Well, look, everybody has different motivations for to be a member of Parliament. Everybody has a different background. There are a number of people with other jobs, many of which actually do contribute to their work as an MP. You know, you have lawyers which help them actually then scrutinise the legislation that we're passing. You have nurses that are keeping their registration going, that can feed back in terms of their real life experiences. But, you know, it's not for me to comment on individuals' financial positions.
Why not?
Well, because that's up to them, and it's also, you know, if someone's been accused of wrongdoing, then there are standards, procedures in place for that.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm
ultimately,
not asking you about wrongdoing at all.
But
not
no,
at all.
what I'm,
not at all.
No, no, what
I was just saying, if you're making £5.5 million quid on the side, why bother being an MP? That was my question to you. You've told me what motivates you, and it's very laudable. But I'm saying some of your colleagues who might be sat next to you or not are making that sort of money. And you must sit there and think, what's the point if you being here? You're hardly ever here anyway. You're usually in the British Virgin Islands.
What I was going to go on to say, Kay, is ultimately it's the electorate that's there to do that. You know, I've had the electorate put faith in me 3 times now, and I'm open, I'm transparent, and as are every MP, because we have a register of interest. It's there for all voters to be able to see what their MP is saying for them, speaking about on their behalf, how they're voting, and also their register of interests. And they should be the ones that are the judge, jury and executioner at the ballot box come the election time.
Is being an MP not a full-time job?
Well, it depends on where you're going with this, because actually what I hear from one of the arguments about not having a second job is about the time. Now, I'm a minister, and actually over the last 19 months, as you can imagine, as business minister, that's taken an extraordinary amount of my time. Now, clearly, some of that has an impact on my local constituency as well. But time-wise, I think you can actually compartmentalise your time, as I've done. But it really depends on what you're doing. You shouldn't be a paid advocate for anybody in Parliament. That's what I meant about wrongdoing. That's what needs to be rooted out.
Yeah, and we weren't talking about that this morning. We've dealt with that quite a lot, including with Owen Paterson, when you said, I think it was one of your colleagues certainly said 10 days ago, it's a storm in a teacup. Still talking about it, though, aren't we? It's rather a big storm.
Well, as I say, I think that was someone else talking about Owen Paterson. But nonetheless, you know, as often happens, there are stories that are sitting within journalist pockets that they bring out at times like this. And but it's really important that we get it right.
Are you saying it's journalists' fault that the corrupt politicians are taking money when they shouldn't be? I'm sure you're not saying that for 1 second, are you?
No, but we're talking
just to
about.
clarify.
Depends. Look, no. Owen Paterson was one case, and that has been rooted out. He's obviously resigned. The situation that you're talking about today is not about people taking money wrongly. It's about whether they should be having second jobs and what. So that's it's a different conversation, but an important conversation.
I moved on and asked you about it, the fact that whether it was a storm in a teacup or not. Do you stand by your comments then, the comments that you made about Owen Paterson, and this being nothing more than a case of Labour playing party politics? That's what you said at the time.
Yeah, what I said about that was the widening of the discussion in question time last week. It wasn't about Owen Paterson. It was actually about a lot of series of accusations that people were conflating with the Owen Paterson case. Because what you tend to find in moments like this is that it does widen out to other parties. I've seen issues like Keir Starmer, for example, to making money, giving legal advice, and he hasn't said who he's giving legal advice to in the previous years. We've got Ed Davey that's had a consultancy. So lots of different parties are declaring outside interests, but it just damages the politics body, if you like, and sometimes and trust in parliamentarians. That's what I was trying to say. But nonetheless, we've got to get this right so that electors can actually see what their MPs are doing on their behalf and why, and then they can make the decision and they can hold their MPs to account.
Is it OK for an MP to be in the British Virgin Islands for weeks on end rather than representing his constituents?
Well, I'm not going to defend Jeffrey, or I'm not going to say anything. That's up to Jeffrey. That's between him and his voters. We've had an odd situation, I must admit, over the last...
No, it's not.
Well,
it's not, though, is it? Because you're a member, you're a minister, you're more senior than he is. How do you feel about one of your MPs being in the British Virgin Islands, sunning himself, or whatever he's doing, while his constituents are trying to get him on the phone and they can't?
Well, I don't know whether they've been able to contact him or not. I don't know whether he's been sunning himself. So that's why it's not appropriate for me to comment on partial information. But nonetheless, as I say, the voters can see exactly what any MP has and hasn't been doing. We've been in an odd situation over the last few months during the pandemic, because pretty well every MP had a proxy vote, and so we weren't able to come in freely into Parliament over that period with the hybrid situation that we had. But nonetheless, that's gone back to normal now. I expect MPs' attendance to go back to normal as well.
OK. You can appreciate, can you not, that the optics are not good? Or are you guys, like, completely blinkered and can't even acknowledge that?
No. Okay, no, absolutely. I can see exactly how it looks, and it's really regrettable that we've got to this situation. What I would say is that politicians from all sides that I see, that I meet, are in it for the right reasons. They want to make a positive difference to their residents in their constituencies, and indeed the country as a whole.
OK, what is it that's regrettable, just to clarify?
Well, that we've got in a position that, first of all, last week that we allowed the situation from one individual to be conflated with the standards procedures, which do need looking at. They do need an appeals process, but in order to do that, we need a cross-party consensus. But then, as I say, for a number of other issues to be conflated, which we need to tackle, but we need to tackle in a level-headed way, and certainly not get into a party political bun fight.
Well, it's not really, is it? One of your colleagues is, you know, sunning himself in the British Virgin Islands. But come the next election, we'll see what happens. Well, final question before I let you go. Will care home staff be allowed to turn up for work today if they're not double-jabbed?
Well, I mean, the rules are that today is the deadline for those double jabs to have happened. It's important that we protect the people within care homes. We've seen the difficulty of doing that during the height of the pandemic, and we've obviously extended that to NHS frontline workers. But you'll need to speak to to those people within the care homes to get further details on exactly what's going to happen at this moment in time.
Well, what do you expect to happen? If they turn up for work, what should happen to them?
Well, I think there's a level of expectations. They've had 12 weeks to have had their vaccination. I would hope and expect that those people would have that duty of care to the people that they are there to serve and to protect those people, the most vulnerable in our society, the people that are most likely to be hospitalised and I'm afraid to die of COVID. That's what that measure has been all about, and that's why we're determined to make sure that continues.
So they should be turned away at the door, leaving their colleagues to struggle looking after the very people that you've just been talking about?
Well, I'm not sure it's a matter of people being turned away at the door, Kay. It's something that's happened over the last 12 weeks that people in social care have known and had plenty of warning about, and I would hope that they would have gone out and got those vaccinations to keep the people that they work for safe.
OK. Have you ever been to the British Virgin Islands?
No.
Would you like to?
Not at all.
Would you like to?
Who knows? Maybe sometime. I've barely been out of the country, so yeah, for the last couple of years. So I'm way too busy to even think about a foreign trip at the moment.
And there we have it. It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you. Still to come on the programme for you this morning, the brains of London cabbies are being studied as part of research into treating Alzheimer's. Later this hour, we'll speak to a neuroscience professor. We'll also speak to a black cabbie about why there's such a shortage of drivers. They're demanding fertility equality. We'll speak to the same-sex couple taking legal action against their local NHS group over its IVF treatment policy. And we'll discuss the ongoing sleaze allegations with the Shadow Housing Secretary, Lucy Powell. Now, as you heard, new rules come into force this morning, meaning that all care home staff in England must be double jabbed against coronavirus. Let's speak to Sadia, who is standing by in Liverpool for us this morning. Hi, Sadia, what's going to happen there?
Good morning. Well, the Minister was there talking about protecting care home residents. Well, care homes will say they need to be fully staffed in order to be able to do that. And I'm at a care home in Liverpool where they've lost 7% of their staff members because of their vaccination status. And let me just tell you a bit about what these workers would have done. They're called support workers. They would have been in charge of things like personal care, so feeding and bathing their guests here. Well, we can go over now and speak to Normandy Ragg. She's the CEO of St Joseph's Care Homes. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, tell us, what is the impact on care home residents?
Well, we always try to keep really safe staffing numbers, so this will have an impact, but no matter what happens, all the residents that are here at St Joseph's will be safe. But it will put some extra stress on the existing staff members who have been so very good throughout the pandemic and who are just a bit tired now.
And what about in terms of replacing these staff? Is that easy to do?
Right now we're having some challenges with recruitment. All across the country, health and social care is having some challenges. We will have challenges with recruitment. Recruitment and safer recruitment checks do take time. We have to make sure we get the right type of people into the right roles. And so it will have an impact on us, without a doubt.
Amazing. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Well, as you hear, there are challenges not just here at this care home, but likely to be something that we see across care homes across the country.
OK, thank you. Thanks a lot. Also this morning for you, the Duchess of Sussex has apologised to a court for forgetting that she asked a senior aide to brief the authors of a book about her. The revelation came during a hearing brought by the owners of the Mail on Sunday, who were appealing against a ruling over publishing a letter from the Duchess to her father. Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, is today starting the 19th day of his hunger strike. He's calling on the government to do more to bring his wife home from Iran. Let's talk to the former Foreign Secretary, now Chair of the Health and Social Committee, and that is Jeremy Hunt, of course. Mr Hunt, thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. We chatted to him, Richard, earlier on in the week, and he was not in good shape. When is this going to be resolved?
Well, I saw him yesterday, and first thing to say is he is an incredibly brave man. And he's brave for two reasons. Firstly, because he is doing everything possible to get Nazanin released. But secondly, because he's the first person in this situation, and there have been many over the years, who's gone public about it. And so the world knows about Iran's hostage taking. And I hope one of the things that comes out of this is that Iran and other countries that are thinking of doing this in the future are shamed into not doing so, because it is an outrageous thing in the 21st century that countries actually take innocent people hostage in order to get their way on diplomatic issues.
Why, when you were Foreign Secretary, did you not organise for this 400 million quid's worth of debt that we owe the Iranians to be sorted out, and then she could come home?
Well, that is the heart of the issue, and I did make a lot of efforts in that direction. I went to Tehran to meet the then Foreign Minister to try and understand what was blocking her release. And I think we have moved on now. When I was Foreign Secretary, there was a debate about the principle of it. And we established that this is not paying ransom money. If it was paying ransom money, I wouldn't support paying it. This is paying a debt that an international court has said we owe. The Defence Secretary has said we owe. And I think there is now no argument about the principle of it. It's difficult. Iran is a horrible regime that does the most despicable things, so it doesn't make anyone comfortable doing it. But now it's about the mechanics. They are sanctioned. It's not totally easy. It is doable, and we've just got to get on and do it.
So we should pay them?
We should absolutely pay them, because this is a debt, and we are a country that pays its debts. And even if it is a totally unsavoury regime, we should pay this debt. There should be no linkage whatsoever between this and the case of, by the way, not just Nazanin, but Anousheh Shuri, Murad Tabaz, both wonderful people, both innocent, both people who have got incredibly supportive and very, very distressed families. And, you know, this is definitely an impediment in the relationship. And whether or not Iran sees there to be a linkage, we need to solve this issue anyway, and we should get on and do it.
I think there's a meeting today, isn't there, with the Iranian deputy FM. What should come from that?
Well, this is actually really good news. It's encouraging. This Deputy Foreign Minister is over here because of COP26. And I think that the reason that we're encouraged about this is that when I was Foreign Secretary, we always asked ourselves whether it was a waste of time talking to the Foreign Ministry, because the government in Iran was really controlled by the hardliners, the Revolutionary Guards, who reported to the Supreme Leader. But now the hardliners have actually taken over the government. So ironically, it might be more productive talking to the Foreign Ministry, because they might be speaking to the whole of the government, including the people who are holding Nazanin hostage.
You were also Health Secretary. You've had lots of titles as part of this government, and you're now Chair of the Health and Social Care Committee. Where are you? Where are you as far as double jabbed staff no longer being able to work from today in care homes?
I think it's a very difficult issue. The practical issue is, what is going to be the impact of some people leaving, as they undoubtedly do. But I do support it, because in the end, if your mum or your dad is in a care home or indeed in a hospital, I think you have a right to know that everyone taking care of him or her has taken trouble to make sure they're not spreading a disease asymptomatically. It is the first responsibility of every doctor, nurse or carer. And every single one that I know has been jabbed twice. So I think it is the right thing to do. It will keep patients safer. But I do recognise there are some practical challenges.
Of course, you can still pass on COVID, even if you have been double jabbed, even if you've also had your booster. Is daily testing not a better option?
Yes, but, daily testing is not foolproof either. The one thing you can do that will make a big difference is to get jabbed. And I think that people working in health and care do understand that. And they want to put the safety and the protection of the vulnerable people that they have, after all, given their lives to looking after. They want to put that first. So, look, it's a really difficult issue. It's difficult in the care sector. It's difficult in the NHS. But I do think Sajid Javid is right to have bitten the bullet on it.
You're a senior member of the party, the government. How embarrassing is it for our Prime Minister to be standing up on the world stage and saying we are not a corrupt country?
Well, I'm not a member of the government, but I am a Conservative MP. I'm proud to be a Conservative MP. And all I would say to anyone who is laughing at Britain, laughing at our democracy anywhere in the world, is it is because people like you are asking people like me these kind of difficult questions. We have one of the most active, vibrant, toughest media scrutiny of politicians anywhere in the world, that we are actually less corrupt than most countries. And that's not to say we're perfect. That's not to say we get everything right. But the fact is we are a very open, robust democracy. And I think ultimately that is actually to our credit.
With that in mind, you were there during the expenses scandal. How similar is this?
I think it's one of those things where one or two elements of wrongdoing may cause the rules to be changed. And I think there are some grey areas where there needs to be more clarity. We know that you're not allowed to do private business from parliamentary premises. Does that apply if someone calls you on your mobile, for example, and you happen to be in your office in Parliament? And I think what this will do is mean those kind of rules are clarified, and that's a good thing.
And is it OK to do your business as an MP from the British Virgin Islands?
Well, I don't want to talk about that individual case, Kay, because that's going to be investigated.
Choose any place you want. Let's say Mallorca. Is it OK to work for several weeks away from Parliament?
Well, there are lots of lovely corners of the world where, we would all love to do our work from. But, I think in this particular case, we just need to let the investigation happen and find out whether the rules were broken.
Good to talk to you, as always, Mr. Hunt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clinical trials are about to begin on a new vaccine for Ebola, one of the world's deadliest diseases. I want to talk about it in more detail. Enda standing by for us, I think, in the newsroom. Yep, there he is. Hi, Enda. Good morning. Your thoughts on this story this morning, please?
Yeah, morning, Kay. Well, this is day one of phase one of these clinical trials at Oxford University. 26 people aged between 18 and 55 will be given one dose of this new Ebola vaccine. They'll be monitored over 6 months. and we'll get full results on all the trials second quarter of next year. Now, if we look at how they're doing this, it's effectively based on a weakened variation of the common cold virus, and that has been genetically modified, so there's no prospect of the virus replicating itself in humans. Now, Ebola has 4 species in total. The 2 that are the most dangerous are Zaire and Sudan types of Ebola. They really cause very serious complications for people. Zaire in particular has a fatality rate of between 70 and 90% in people when it is not treated. And of course, the most recent outbreak was in 2018 when there were some 32,000 people infected in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 13,600 of them died. So a very significant day at Oxford University. Another vaccine they're trialling, and it's loosely based around the kind of science and technology that they used for the AstraZeneca jab.
OK, thank you. Quick look at the weather. Very quick look at the weather.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Conditions across the country will remain divided north to south before cloud, rain and strong winds spread in from the Atlantic tomorrow evening. A quiet start to the day with slack winds, whatever that means, causing mist and fog to linger in places.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
More incredible pictures for you now, emerging from the volcanic eruption in La Palma. Here we go. Homes, garden furniture and buildings covered in ash. Oh, my goodness me. As the eruption continues, it's been more than 5 weeks since the Cumbre Vieja first erupted in September. And scientists estimate the volcano has so far thrown out more than 10,000 cubic metres of rock and magma. Look at that poor pussycat. Still, I'm sure he's fine. We're going to be talking to the scientists studying the navigational skills of London's black cab drivers to see if they could provide a treatment for Alzheimer's next. A senior government minister has expressed regret, we're told, for the government's handling of the sleaze allegations. The Prime Minister was yesterday forced to insist the UK is not remotely a corrupt country. It comes amid controversy over Conservative MPs with second jobs. A short time ago, the Minister for Small Business, Paul Scully, told me the situation was regrettable.
Absolutely, I can see exactly how it looks, and it's really regrettable that we've got to this situation. What I would say is that politicians from all sides that I see, that I meet, are in it for the right reasons. They want to make a positive difference to their residents in their constituencies and indeed the country as a whole.
Samara's here. He also did go on to say that he was too busy to go to the British Virgin Islands.
Yes, interesting that he didn't defend Geoffrey Cox,
no, he
was again in the papers because newspapers have totted up how much he made from his legal work over the whole time he's been an MP, which he's been perfectly open about and declared properly, and it's £5.5 million. Now, none of that is against the rules. The only breach of the rules that he's accused of is using his Commons office for that work, but other MPs not rushing to his defence. And the reason for that is because while a lot of MPs, particularly Conservative MPs, it must be said, do make money from outside sources, he makes the most, and he also has not spoken in Parliament. So in the last 18 months, he's only spoken once. And I think that is what is really galling Downing Street and a lot of MPs about this issue, that there is a line of appropriateness somewhere, and not speaking in Parliament more than once in 18 months is possibly where it is.
We also spoke to Jeremy Hunt, actually, and he had views as well, didn't he?
Yes, well, when you asked him about whether this was reminiscent of the expenses scandal, and that is what some MPs fear, really, that this has opened a Pandora's box where now journalists and others are going through the register of members' interests, where all MPs have to declare their outside earnings. and saying, well, this MP made, there was an example of one MP, Lawrence Robertson, made £24,000 as an advisor to the betting council, and there was a time when he talked about betting in Parliament. There are other MPs...
Not illegal?
Not illegal.
Not against the rules, I should say.
Every MP is allowed to take money as long as it's properly declared. They're just not allowed to lobby ministers or officials behind the scenes, which is what Owen Paterson was found to have done. So there are lots of cases now bubbling away, and the feeling is there's no real end in sight. This could just go on for some time. And Jeremy Hunt said there was a need to tighten up the rules in grey areas because, for example, he said you could work for an outside business perfectly legitimately. What if they called you on your mobile phone when you were sitting in your office in Parliament? Would that be against the rules? So he's suggesting that the rules do need a bit of an overhaul.
OK, for now, tomorrow's take at 9 o'clock. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Meantime, scientists to look at whether the brains of London's famous black cab drivers, cabbies, could be used to find a cure for Alzheimer's. They're famous, of course, for being able to use their memory to plot the quickest route across the capital. But the research comes at exactly the moment we're being warned the city is running low on cabbies. So joined by the General Secretary of the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association and a black cabbie himself as well, Steve McNamara. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. So it's called the knowledge, I think, isn't it? And as a result, apparently it fends off Alzheimer's. What do you think?
Well, we're very proud that London's taxi drivers have got bigger hippocampuses than everybody else. It's not everybody that can say that.
Yeah. What do you think, though, about what actually has to happen as far as the knowledge is concerned? Why do you think that improves your brain power?
Well, what happens, you have to spend an enormous amount of time, anything up to 3-4 years, memorising virtually every street in London, every building, every site of public interest, restaurant, bar, club, TV studio. And as a result of that, you obviously take on a large amount of knowledge. And the theory is that a certain part of your brain, the hippocampus, gets bigger, and apparently it helps to fend off Alzheimer's. You know, quite how true it is, I don't know. But to be honest, we've given it a lot of thought. And we can't think of many cabbies that have retired or who actually have Alzheimer's. So perhaps there is something in it.
Do you, be honest now, do you use Waze and Google Maps these days?
No, what often happens is we use those things as traffic indicators. So things like Waze obviously show the traffic and so do Google Maps. And a lot of cabbies, especially with the recent number of road closures and stuff, often have those running, not to show them the route, but just to show them where the traffic is and to possibly make a change, you know, shortly before or after. And of course, what we rapidly recognise is that those things are often wrong even today. So, you know, this great technology is no substitute for knowing where you're going and the knowledge of London.
Yeah, I'm always absolutely astounded how if you get in the back of a cab and you say, can you take me here? They immediately know how to get there in the quickest route as well. But there is a shortage of cabbies, isn't there? What's going on?
Yeah, it is a bit over-exaggerated, to be honest with you, Kay. But what has happened during the pandemic, when a lot of taxi drivers had absolutely no support whatsoever, fell through the holes in the various government schemes, the SEI, SS and others, sold cabs and left the industry. And now that they're returning, and they're returning in numbers, what there's a real shortage of is vehicles. Taxi drivers in London are at the moment investing over £3 million a week in these new electric vehicles, but there's just not enough of them. And there is a shortage of cabs. We're down to 14,000 cabs in London from just over 18,000 at the start of the pandemic. And it is beginning to cause us problems.
I was about to ask you about the electric vehicles. Where are we with that? Are they sort of what the diesel ones are being phased out and the electric ones coming in?
Yeah, 35% of London's taxi fleet now is electric. We're adopting this new green, clean technology, you know, way ahead of COPs, way ahead of anything else. And as I said, we're investing £3 million a week. These vehicles are £65,000, and we're buying them at a rate of 50 a week. And London is transforming to electric vehicles at a rate unseen anywhere else in the world. And very shortly, London will have not only the best cab service in the world, but we'll have the cleanest cab service anywhere in the world.
And when do you expect the fleet to be completely electric?
Had it not been for the pandemic, we were estimating at the end of 2024, possibly 2025 at some time, certainly 90%. What we're doing at the moment, as you know, we're only sort of 8 weeks back, 10 weeks back after the pandemic. So we're being a bit careful with our you know, with our predictions. But look, the reality is 35% of the fleet's electric at the moment, and that's changing at the rate of 50 a week, which is just phenomenal. And just finally, Kay, I would like to reassure your viewers that I am not in the British Virgin Islands.
But are you going south of the river today, though?
I'm actually talking to you from South London, which is, you know, there you go. So that's another rumour scotched.
It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. I think that's a London-centric joke, isn't it, though, Steve? Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the rest of us, it's apparently it's what cabbies say. I'm not going south of the river, but obviously they do. Hugo Spires is joining us as well. He is a Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience at UCL, University College London. Thanks for joining us on the programme. So, London's cabbies' brains studied to help fend off Alzheimer's. Tell us more.
Yes, this is our project Taxi Brains we've set up. So we're trying to find out more about the size of their hippocampus in more detail. Things have moved on technologically since 2000 when they were first studied. So we want to see a bit more detail about how the hippocampus is shaped and organized. We also want to see more about how they do that performance. You said they can just jump, you can jump in a cab and they'll just take you where you need to go immediately. How do they do that? So we've been looking at how they use their brain with brain imaging, the activity in their brain. And finally, as noted in the piece, we're quite interested in understanding, given that the hippocampus seems to get larger with experience and age in that case. That's unusual. Normally, our hippocampus tends to decline a bit. So it's really important for thinking about diseases like Alzheimer's dementia, where there is actually a shrinkage within the hippocampus as part of that disease. These people seem to hold an important key to understanding the puzzle of how we might examine and understand Alzheimer's disease. So we'll be putting them through a potential future diagnostic tool. It helps us understand more about the disorientation navigation skills people have, that they then may be useful for spotting people who have problems. So if we can understand the absolute experts and how their brains are changing, it may give us insights we need to know towards the development of potential tools that detect Alzheimer's. And then in the future, when we do potentially have drugs available, we might be able to treat Alzheimer's earlier and earlier. And that's really the aim of this mission. Of Taxi
So what
Brain.
can we do? What can we do to try to improve our brain power? I often read about Sudokus being a good idea.
Yeah, there's good evidence keeping your brain active is good, and as Steve said in the piece coming in, you know, we don't know whether to what extent what taxi drivers do might be quite important. They have to really think very hard every day about how they can plan routes through 26,000 streets. So for the rest of us, keeping our brains active and keeping our bodies healthy seems to be a really key message. It's not just keeping your brain busy, but get out there, get healthy, get active. How good are you at Sudoku? You any good? Rubbish. As some scientists, we're very specialised in what we're good at, and that is not one of my skills.
Crosswords, Telegraph crossword, how are you on that?
Yeah, again, not my forte, more studying brains and thinking through what's going on inside people's brains and the structure of brains. Crosswords are great. I do enjoy them, but it's quite different. But that knowledge test the taxi drivers do is just like beyond any possible crazy crossword you could think of. You know, picking two random streets and working out how you would get exactly on the shortest line between them.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? It's good to talk to you, Hugo. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Fertility equality will meet the same-sex couple who've started legal action against the NHS over its IVF treatment policy. That's come. Now, a married same-sex couple has started legal action against their local NHS over its fertility treatment policy. They say that the health service is financially penalising LGBTQ+ partners. Social media influencers Whitney and Megan Bacon-Evans both with us now. Hello to you both. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme this morning. Not sure who wants to take the first question, but why are you launching this case?
Well, we're launching this case because obviously it's very personal to us. We are a lesbian couple. We've been together for 13 years. And when we embarked on our baby journey at the beginning of 2020, we were shocked to discover there was various barriers and discrimination in place against us. And ultimately, it comes down to wanting equal access to fertility treatment. And it's the unfair financial burden that has been placed on the LGBTQ+ community that amounts to the less favourable treatment.
OK, so Whitney, how are you treated differently
For instance, our local CCG, which is a clinical commissioning group, they require same-sex couples, so Megan and I, to undergo 12 self-funded rounds of IUI. And if you combine that with the cost of donor sperm, you're looking at essentially £50,000 you have to pay just to be on an equal playing field with a heterosexual couple who their requirements for IVF are 2 years of unprotected sex with no evidence required. So essentially there is, you could call it a gay tax that is put on us.
And Megan, how much does it actually cost you so far, and how do you want to see the process changed?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the moment, it's cost us around £8,000, and actually majority of that is donor sperm, so I don't know if a lot of people realise, but that part is also very expensive, as well as the fertility treatments. And what we're wanting, obviously, to happen is for equal rights for the LGBTQ+ community, for there to be discrimination to be recognised, and ultimately for us to be treated as equal. What that looks like is obviously not entirely down to us, but to be on an equal similar level would be IUI being provided, that level of insemination in the first step, and then IVF. And this is actually something that Scotland already provide.
Whitney, have you had much support in your action?
Yes, we've had an overwhelming amount of support. It is absolutely wonderful to see how many people who have reached out with a positive response. And Megan and I have also realised, this just does not affect us. It affects the whole community. And it just shows there is such a need for what we're really campaigning for.
So, Megan, what happens now?
Well, our case has been issued to the Judicial Court for review, and then we are just literally waiting to hear. So keep posted.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. How important is it, Whitney, to you both to be able to have a family?
Oh, it's very important. As Megan said, we've been together for 13 years. She's the love of my life. So we always envisioned having 2 little kiddos, and we already picked out the name of our children like 10 years ago. So we're very excited.
Oh, I'm desperate to know what they are. Tell me.
Thank you.
Oh,
tell me what the names are.
We have said they're Olivia and Oscar.
Olivia and Oscar. Oh, those are beautiful names. So how long do you think the process might take?
For us to get pregnant, or for the case?
For the whole case to proceed to fruition, so that you can find yourself in a position where you can have Olivia and Oscar.
Well, at the moment, our lawyers are hoping that the court hearing may take place in January, but it all depends if it is agreed to be expedited. So obviously we know it's going to be months, but how many, we don't know yet.
Okay, well, I think it's reasonable to say that when you do finally have those little ones, given how beautiful their mums are, they're going to be very handsome children. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Well, the fertility services we provide, this is a statement, are based on NICE guidance. While we can't comment on individual cases, we will fully engage with any legal proceedings. This is from NHS Frimley Clinical Commissioning Group. Quick look at the weather for you.